Preface. Ethereal Hollywood is a world reconfigured from the golden age of Hollywood, where the legendary stars are not just memories, but immortal archetypes, still living in their own parallel alternative reality. Familiar history is not duplicated but flexible and constantly revisioning itself along diverse pathways. Time and space are also more fluid and less binding. And what has been called magic works in odd and unusual ways, producing scenarios from the silly to the surreal. And since these stories are in an alternative world or dimension, there are variances from real-world facts, such as the relationship between characters, studios, events. This is a fluid world where history flows in unexpected directions. These are audiobooks with imagery synced to the narrative as much as possible, serving as quasi-storyboards to give a rough visual dimension to the stories. Secret Agents, Supervillains, and Real Estate. Book 18 of the Ethereal Hollywood series. By Arnold Kalnitsky. The light in Ethereal Hollywood was not sunlight, but rather the perpetual golden hue of 1,000 perfectly exposed close-ups. Streets were paved not with asphalt, but with recycled platinum reels, and the air itself carried the faint, intoxicating scent of celluloid, glamour, and thinly veiled threat. Ethereal Hollywood was the realm of the immortal archetypes, the legends of the Golden Age, forever holding court, their narratives fluid and constantly revising, yet fundamentally stable. Stability was the key. But lately, the very foundations of Ethereal Hollywood's narrative structure had begun to shudder. The map of archetype allotments, the sacred diagram defining who lived where and what level of status they commanded, was flickering like a faulty projector bulb. The culprits were the resurrected antagonists of the 1960s spy boom, men and one art collector, who saw the malleable reality of Ethereal Hollywood not as a sanctuary, but as prime real estate waiting for a hostile takeover. The agents assemble. The headquarters of the Temporal Stability Unit, SU, was located deep within the projection booth of the Eternal Premiere Theater, a structure that existed simultaneously in 1937, 1959, and tomorrow afternoon. 5 figures of unquestionable competence, and varying degrees of sartorial splendor, stood beneath the enormous, humming lens that projected Ethereal Hollywood's foundational reality. James Bond, impeccable in midnight blue velvet, checked the cuff of his shirt, a subtle motion that managed to convey both world weariness and readiness for martinis. Beside him, Matt Helm, looking slightly rumpled despite his tailor-made leisure suit, was attempting to fix a miniature tape recorder disguised as a pineapple slice. Honestly, Mavis, the structural integrity of this reality seems to be falling apart, and my blender still won't mix a decent Singapore sling. Modesty Blaise, sharp, elegant, and radiating dangerous calm in a sleek black jumpsuit, merely raised an eyebrow. It is worse than a mere mixing malfunction, Mr. Helm. The entire narrative flow is under attack. Gabriel is attempting to replace the established color palette of the Sunset Strip with shocking pink and lime green, a severe and unforgivable transgression against visual continuity. The fourth agent, Fathom Harvill, less concerned with fashion than with high-altitude acrobatics, adjusted the zipper on her practical, white catsuit. My target, Mr. Gregory, has located a critical nexus scroll, the one that defines the elasticity of time-space in Ethereal Hollywood. He plans to unwind it entirely, plunging us into a state of total, illogical physics. Finally, Derek Flint, the epitome of sophisticated, overqualified insouciance, casually lit a cigarette with his Swiss Army knife cigar lighter two-way radio Geiger counter. And my operative, Gila, is attempting to reroute the entire power grid of the Bel Air backlots, intending to install a toxic seaweed filtration system. She claims Rac chic is the inevitable future of ethereal Hollywood architecture. This, as you know, is unacceptable. Those lots are rated for high-density melodrama archetypes only. A shimmering, green schematic hovered above the briefing table, the map of archetype allotments. Blofeld's distinctive white Persian cat silhouette had been superimposed directly over the prime Beverly Hills acreage historically reserved for cinematic royalty. "Gentlemen, Mrs.," said the disembodied, slightly echoing voice of agency control. The villains seek narrative control and, critically, better addresses. Their method is to push the instability until ethereal Hollywood reverts to the chaos of a poorly funded 1968 Italian knockoff film. You must restore equilibrium. The path of the villain. Their missions disperse the 5 agents across the constantly shifting landscape of ethereal Hollywood. Bond vs. Blofeld. The archive heist. Bond found himself in the ethereal Hollywood equivalent of the National Archive, a cathedral of film history where every scene ever shot existed as mutable, living data. Blofeld, never a man for subtlety, was seated inside a massive, hollowed-out replica of a volcano, instructing a flock of masked henchmen. "Welcome, Mr. Bond," Blofeld's voice echoed through the archive, synthesized and deeply satisfied. "Observe. I am rewriting the establishment clause of ethereal Hollywood's spy genre. From this moment forth, the villains shall be permitted to deliver their lengthy exposition before the heroes arrive, not during the moment of inevitable defeat. Think of the structural improvements." Bond glided past a shelf labeled, "Abandoned Scripts, 1962. Blofeld, your attempts to streamline the narrative arc are consistently tedious. And I must point out, this volcano set piece is structurally unsound. It risks collapsing into a terrible metaphor." Blofeld sneered, adjusting the placement of a small, decorative satellite dish. "You resist progress, 007. I intend to take the supervillain archetype from the penthouse to the executive suite. I have acquired the deed to the Monaco Mansion district simply by inserting a rogue frame into the original negative of Dr. No. The fight was swift and typically theatrical. Bond dodged a laser beam fired from the cat's collar and skillfully redirected a narrative-disrupting grenade, shaped like a golden egg, back toward Blofeld's console. The ensuing explosion did not harm anyone, but it instantly downgraded Blofeld's lair from a volcano to a slightly leaky hot tub, momentarily freezing him within a loop of low-budget underwater footage. "Status quo maintained," Bond murmured, straightening his tie. "Though I fear my tailor will hear about this stain." Helm vs. Tungzi. The cocktail catastrophe. Matt Helm's assignment led him to the famed Brown Derby Promenade, currently under lockdown. His adversary was Tungzi, the deadly operative known for his masterful use of exotic poisons and even more exotic sidekicks. Tungzi was attempting the most insidious of ethereal Hollywood crimes, diluting the quality of the mandatory 5 p.m. cocktail hour archetype. "Mr. Helm," Tungzi announced from atop a giant, rotating martini glass, "I shall replace the traditional dry gin martini with a sickly sweet, brightly colored tropical concoction. This structural shift will loosen all archetypal inhibitions, allowing chaos to bloom. And look, your personal narrative is already shifting. You are beginning to sweat." Helm felt a surge of uncharacteristic humidity. He was momentarily distracted by a stunning blonde who was inexplicably peeling shrimp next to a fully functioning atomic reactor disguised as a jukebox. "Now, wait just a minute," Helm protested, wiping his brow. A radioactive jukebox is disruptive enough, but a sweet martini? That's sacrilege, even for an archetypal playboy. Helm activated his belt buckle, which was supposed to deploy a miniature harpoon, but instead squirted mustard. He then used his exploding hatband, meant for self-defense, to create a sudden, localized downpour of ice cubes, which instantly chilled the entire cocktail area, restoring the desired, dry martini, temperature. Tungzi, slipping on a stray olive pit, tumbled into the giant martini glass, trapped in a narrative loop where he was forced to spend eternity listening to bad lounge music. Well, Helm sighed, adjusting his damp suit. At least the blonde seems friendly. Must investigate the structural integrity of that shrimp supply. Modesty versus Gabriel. The Aesthetics War. Modesty Blaise tracked the villainous Gabriel, the ruthless art collector, to the Gallery of Infinite Revisions, a space where Ethereal Hollywood's visual history was curated. Gabriel believed that true narrative power derived from controlling global aesthetics. Modesty, darling. Gabriel greeted her, surrounded by canvases featuring aggressively clashing primary colors. I have secured the narrative rights to all future Ethereal Hollywood costuming. Imagine. No more subtle silhouettes. Only exaggerated collars, unnecessary buckles, and entirely impractical footwear. I shall move into the A-list district of Technicolor Terraces, simply by altering the national trouser length. Modesty was unimpressed. Your taste is pedestrian, Gabriel. And your color choices violate the Geneva Convention on Good Taste. She didn't fight him physically, she fought him narratively. Drawing a tiny, high-powered pencil from her hair, she began sketching furiously on a nearby blank canvas. She wasn't drawing Gabriel. She was drawing the idea of Gabriel in a deeply unbecoming scenario. As she finished the sketch, a quick portrait of Gabriel wearing argyle socks and a thick, ill-fitting tweed suit, the reality around him warped. Gabriel suddenly found himself clad in the sartorial horror she had created, his movements restricted by the heavy wool, his flamboyant villainy instantly undermined by the sheer unsuitability of the attire. No, this is anti-aesthetic, Gabriel wailed, unable to run effectively in his wingtips. Modesty smiled, retrieving her pencil. Narrative control, Gabriel, is about consistency. You are now permanently relegated to the British supporting character in a 1940s boarding school mystery demographic. Their neighborhoods are quite drab. The final nexus. The agents realized the individual skirmishes were simply distractions. The core of the destabilization plot lay in the hands of Flint's and Fathom's adversaries, who were targeting the literal physical and temporal flexibility of Ethereal Hollywood. All 5 agents converged on the nexus point, a shimmering, crystalline pedestal located high above the Ethereal Hollywood skyline, a place where all realities intersected. Flint arrived first, utilizing his specialized, retractable boot skis. Gila, his nemesis, was waiting, surrounded by advanced meteorological equipment disguised as abstract sculpture. Flint, you are too late. Gila cackled. I have established my new address. The Bel Air backlots are mine. Soon, I shall initiate Operation Seaweed, flooding the area and ensuring that all future Ethereal Hollywood dramas must be played out in damp, saline conditions. Flint surveyed the scene, his expression one of mild annoyance. Gila, that will ruin the patina on my customized submersible sports car. Unacceptable. He deployed his belt buckle which, unlike Helm's, actually functioned, releasing a tiny, high-frequency sonic disruptor. The device hit Gila's control panel, which exploded into a shower of aesthetically pleasing but useless confetti. Gila, caught in the sonic delay, was unable to move as Fathom swooped in from above. Fathom's target, Mr. Gregory, was attempting to unroll the immensely long, fragile Nexus scroll, which defined the very laws of reality in Ethereal Hollywood. Almost done, Fathom, Gregory yelled, breathing heavily from the exertion of unraveling the parchment. Once this is fully unrolled, gravity will become optional, and all historical context will evaporate. We shall move into the pre-code penthouse district entirely unchecked. Fathom performed a dazzling aerial maneuver, utilizing a bungee cord that was simultaneously a grappling hook and a parachute. She snatched a corner of the scroll. "No, you don't," she called out. "This reality needs some rules, Mr. Gregory. Otherwise, the audience gets confused." Gregory lunged, but Bond and Helm arrived simultaneously, providing dual, if contrasting, support. Bond employed a gas-powered pen to create a slippery barrier of highly polished wax, while Helm accidentally triggered a gadget that released a giant cloud of non-lethal, champagne-scented foam. Caught between the wax and the foam, Mr. Gregory tumbled, dropping the scroll. Modesty, arriving next, caught the scroll midair with elegant precision. "The scroll is stable," she announced calmly. "Now, to ensure our adversaries are definitively neutralized and suitably relocated." The demotion. The villains were subdued, not with handcuffs, but with the binding power of narrative consequence. Blofeld, once trapped in the hot tub loop, was now officially confined to the Ethereal Hollywood equivalent of the Valley, a district notorious for requiring villains to rely on clumsy disguises and easily foiled plans. Tungzi was banished to the suburban spaghetti western quadrant, where all his exotic poisons were replaced by mild laxatives, and his preferred weapon was mandatory banjos. Gabriel found his tweed suit permanent, and his residence downgraded to the perpetually rainy London alley. His narrative arc was now restricted to art dealer who makes poor investment choices. Gila and Mr. Gregory, though they had aimed for the skies, were forced to share a damp beach hut in the failed pilot region of Ethereal Hollywood, where they were forced to endlessly debate the proper structural integrity of sandcastles. Order was restored. The map of archetype allotments settled, the golden light of the eternal close-up steadied, and Ethereal Hollywood breathed a collective sigh of relief. The 5 agents reassembled in the Eternal Premiere Theater. "Well done, team," said the agency control voice. "Status quo is firm. All archetypes are where they belong. The narrative density has stabilized." Matt Helm poured himself a celebratory drink, which, thanks to the restored reality, was now a perfectly executed dry martini. "So, we saved Hollywood, kept the glamour where it belongs, and ensured that the bad guys can't afford decent housing in this reality. All in a day's work." Bond adjusted his cuff. "A necessary defense of stability, Helm. Though I do feel a certain exhaustion that only a quiet evening of excessive gambling can cure." Flint checked his cigarette lighter, ensuring the Geiger counter function was still operational. "Indeed. And I must ensure that Gila has not managed to transmit any corrosive sea salt into the air conditioning system. One must always check the ventilation." Modesty simply nodded, the faint thrill of danger still lingering in her eyes. The fight for elegant continuity is never truly over. But for tonight, the balance holds. As the agents departed back into the shimmering, flexible reality of Ethereal Hollywood, the golden light followed them, a light that was not just cinematic, but eternally, hilariously, and perfectly secure. For now,